Okay.
Corinthians,
1 Corinthians chapter 13.
Acts, Revelation.
1 Corinthians chapter 13. Last week we started a series, kind of series on inaccurate doctrine. And I want to pursue that in another aspect of it. You remember what we talked about last week? Predestination. That,
God only loves certain people.
yep, God only loves certain people. Well, I want to kind of confront that again, only in a different way today. Today I want to be looking at inaccurate doctrines involving love. And I think you probably have all heard some of these inaccurate doctrines. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why I believe there are inaccurate doctrines out there. I'm just going to get into what the Bible actually says and let it speak for yourself. And I want you to for itself, sorry. Thank you. I was using the wrong pronoun because I'm too used to modern thought. No. I'm just goofing off there, I promise. I'm not I'm not that way. Love is a very critical aspect of Christianity. If we don't love, we are absolutely wrong in the way we stand. Okay, we can't. You can't have it both ways. It will not work. There's no possibility of it doing anything progressive Christianity as far as the cause of Christ if we don't love. Now I want to make a quick note here that there are a lot of different religions that show really kind of love. But when we're done, I want you to see that the motivation for doing things is what really matters. There's only one way to really get it right. There's only one way to really, really get it right. If I'm going to preface it all with this: if Jesus had come to this earth so that he could bring glory to himself, he wouldn't have died on the cross. He was doing it to allow us an opportunity to have a relationship with the Father. Okay, that's what it was all about. And we looked at it last week, John 3:16, where it says, "For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, so that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life." Okay, so how do we love correctly? If we have Jesus as our example of what love really is, how do we love right? There's a commercial, and I referred to this not too long ago, but I'll do it again. There's a commercial for Swiffer Sweepers, and I find them to be the most annoying thing on earth. But their commercial, in the end, is just a short little annoyance that breaks into what you're trying to watch. And the end thought is, love it or your money back. Okay? I ask you, how do you love a broom, so to speak? You might like what it does for you, but it's a broom. I mean, they try to put it up against a broom and show how clumsy and horrible brooms really are, and then ours is just great, so love it or your money back. Dinah made a little comment yesterday, I think, You know, maybe you ought to get one and then just say, well, I kind of like it. I want my money back. You know, I don't love it. I kind of like it, but um, but people in our world today are constantly referring to love in the wrong way. Every TV show of modern times talk about love in the wrong way. We're all adults here, so I'm going to use some thoughts that might not be quite as appropriate maybe in the presence of kids, but sexual activity is what they consider love. You know, really, let's be honest about it. That's what the world considers to be love. That doesn't hold any clout with Scripture. Okay? Not at all. Everything that the world tries to entice you with is something that you're supposed to look at and say, I need because it'll make my life better. If you do this, it's love in their eyes. Now let's look and see what Scripture itself says about what love really is. And I'll guarantee you as we go through this, it'll never be what can I get? What can I get? How can it make me feel better? How can I come out the other side going, oh, I'm so much better because of this. Okay. I'm going to start with one verse. Actually, a part of a verse. Verse 14, or chapter 14, verse 1 says this: pursue love and desire spiritual gifts. So why would it say pursue love in the start of chapter 14? Because 13 tells us what love really is. That's the reason why that starts out that way. You get into 14 and it's all about how to actually make it work, that you are expressing love the way you're supposed to express love. Now, I express love differently with my wife than I do anybody else on this earth. I express love with my children different than I do with anybody else's children. I express love with my parents in a different way than I do anybody else's parents. But if I don't love, I'm wrong. So let's look and see what it says here. It says, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become a sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. Okay, that's the starting point. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels. I may be a wonderful orator. I'm not, but I'm just saying. I may be a wonderful orator, but if I'm only doing it for my glory, then I'm wrong. I have no love. I've just become a bunch of noise. And I'll express this. Any of the college professors that you have today in our world, and I'd say almost exclusively, and the reason why I say that is because they won't let a biblical person, for example, be a college professor anymore. They just won't do it. They kick them out and don't give them even a chance if they talk anything good about what is real. And so they have all this trash up there, and people listen to it day in and day out and are convinced that they are right. Okay? But what are they really? A bunch of liars. So they're nothing more than expressing a bunch of rattle noise that gets you really nowhere. I'm not talking about all high school teachers. I'm not talking about all grade school teachers. I'm talking about the people who are teaching the teachers. You know, teachers who teach teachers to teach teachers to teach. You know, this is the way it is. This is the kind of people that we see involved with that. But they don't have love. Why do I say that? We'll get into this. Although I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but I have not love, I'm nothing. Okay, so you have somebody that can do things that Jesus didn't even do. Have enough faith. Well, he had enough faith to do it. He just didn't do it. What I'm saying by that, I'm not saying he couldn't do things, but we'll say I have enough faith that I could say I want Cade Mountain to no longer be there. I want it to be way out into the middle of the marbles, and poof, it's gone. You know, what are people going to do? They're going to flock to that as fast and as furiously as they can. But if I don't have love, why are they coming to me? I'm nothing. I'm nothing. Love produces activity that's for the benefit of others. And in doing so, faith is involved. Okay, I may have faith, but if I'm not doing it with love, I'm nothing. I'm absolutely nothing. I'm a clanging cymbal if I talk big and don't love. I am worthless if I have faith so as to do all these great miracles, but I don't love. There are people all over the world that are doing what you might call great miracles. They really are. There's a lot of people that are doing great things, but they're not doing it with love. You go back into Matthew 25 and it says that didn't we even cast out demons in your name? And he says, depart from me, I never knew you. Okay, so there's a lot of people that are doing these things that are not right. Okay, now how many in here would say you're a Christian? You don't have to raise your hand, but how many would say you're a Christian? Now, so far, how do you stand up against the love test? Think about that. Think about that. We're going to get into those to whom I need to show love toward. Okay, verse 3 says, though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but I don't have love, it profits me nothing. Nothing. Worthless. It's worthless. It's stupid. So far, it's my hope, at least, that you will look at this and say, okay, love is the basis for a right relationship with God. Now we're going to look at it, and I mean, I could spend the rest of the morning just on those 3 verses, but I don't want to, because there's so much more to it about how to actually make things happen the way God intended love to be. Okay, Dolly?
Mine never says love any place, it's called charity.
Says charity? Okay, yeah, I understand that. I have a small problem with the wording of that. I'm not King James, I'm assuming. Okay, and how can I put this carefully? What?
I have looked in the dictionary, and charity equals love.
Depending on, okay, now there you go. Depending on which framework you use. And let me say this carefully, and I'm not knocking that because I agree with you, Dolly. I know that. It can be taken in this way. There's a TV show where some people were using a vehicle, and the church, belonged to the church, and the church wanted it back, and the pastor was standing there, the priest was standing there saying this. He was saying, everybody here has been touched by the church's charity. Okay? We've given you something. And you have faith, hope, and charity, but the greatest of these is charity, is the verses that he was referring to. You have faith in those receiving the charity, and you hope that they'll return it to you. Okay? What I'm saying is the word charity in our world today can in fact lead to a lightened sense. And yes, yeah, it does say charity, and I agree, Dinah, I agree with you. It does say both in the definition.
I don't know if I mean, that might have been years and years ago, but right here,
Okay.
the definition is a noun. It says an organization set up to provide help and raise money for those in need. And it's the voluntary giving of help, typically in the form of money, to those in need. And it says, what is the exact meaning of charity? And it says generosity and helpfulness, especially toward the needy or suffering.
Okay.
I mean, that's the world's definition.
Yeah,
for it.
yeah. That's the kind of thing that's you bring up such a good point with that, Dolly, because you're not wrong in any way. And I believe it shows kind of the extended version of what I'm talking about.
It also says what's the biblical meaning of charity, and it says it's the highest form of love.
The highest form of love. Okay. Okay.
You have to specify biblical.
Well, there in reality there is only one type of love, and that's why I'm going with that, as compared to charity, because you do have biblical charity, and that definition would be very, very well taken, because it's the usefulness of love. What I mean, if I don't do something with it, I'm worthless. Let's get into what it says here. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself and is not puffed up. Well, wait a minute. That means it's not self-centered. If it's not self-centered, then how is it that I could love a broom or my money back? They're screwed in my eyes, because everybody should be calling them up, I want my money back. Because that's not even love. There's nothing to do with love. What can it do for me? I think we've determined this in times past. What is that? Lust. How can I make me feel better? How can I get gratification? How can myself be made happier by this? That's gratification. That's lust. Love suffers long and is kind. Love suffers long and is kind. Okay. Why? Why? Now this is an interesting question. Why is it that love suffers long and is kind? Who designed love? God. Now let me ask you, is he or is he not long-suffering and full of kindness? I mean, those are two of his traits that are rampant in everything that he does. We wouldn't be here today if he wasn't long-suffering. We wouldn't be here today if he wasn't kind. We would be wiped out, because the wages of sin is death. So who are we to mimic in that sense? God. Okay, did he do it for his glory? No, he did it for the Father's glory, and to give us a relationship with somebody that we couldn't otherwise have a relationship with. And so, okay, there's a verse in 1 John, and it says this: Some Bibles have changed it. It says, we love him. Why? Because he first loved us. Because a lot of, you'll see in your notes, NU text, which is a long word, or actually two long words, and I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but it says omits him. Okay? So they automatically just go with that, and it says, we love because he first loved us. Okay? I can kind of understand that, and I kind of agree with it. But our first and foremost love should be to whom? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then love your neighbor as yourself. A new commandment, not one of the old commandments. A new commandment, he says, I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you. Therefore, love suffers long, and it doesn't envy. Does that mean that nobody in a relationship of any sort has any right to be jealous of anything ever? No. Not at all. That's not what it's talking about. What it's talking about is this. If my wife was doing something that was completely against our relationship, would I be jealous? You bet. Would I be wrong in doing so? Nope. The Israelites were following after false gods. And God said, I'm not going to play the game forever because I'm a jealous God. And I'm going to wipe you out. I'm going to make problems for you all the way down through the next 7 generations. And if you don't like it, that's your problem. So if him, the one who, can I use the term invented love? Or created love, did this, and he said these things, would not we have that same capacity if something is going completely wrong, such as that? Well, of course we're going to be jealous. And I've heard people all over the internet and all over TV say that, knock somebody because they're jealous about their wife going on dates with other guys. It's like, come on, really? Is that the kind of thing that you're trying to promote? That's not love. There's no love there. My first thought is, well, because you're just pretending. You're a great pretender. An actor is really nothing more than a pretender. Love does not parade itself and is not puffed up. Love does not parade itself and is not puffed up. Love is humble. That's the other way of putting that. I don't know if there's any other translations that would say that. I doubt it. But that's really what it's saying. Love is humble. Again, when Jesus came to die on the cross, did he do it for his own ego? I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have done it if it was for that. At all. It was too much. And it was too bad. The Bible says that despising the shame, he allowed it to happen. That's a paraphrase of it. But he despised the shame. It does not behave rudely and does not seek its own. Is not provoked and thinks no evil. Okay, so here you have a few more things about love that the world isn't going to tell you. What does the world tell you? The world would say love behaves rudely, because that's the only way you're ever going to get ahead in life, is to put yourself first and stomp on whoever you have to stomp on to get to be number one. Who are they referring to in regards to love in that sense? Yourself. I can show you verse after verse after verse that say not to love yourself. But that's what the world tells us to do. It's exactly the opposite of what this says. Precisely. And most people don't realize it. This is stuff that's being taught in the churches. Because we have different words for love, different meanings of love, and because in Greek there were 3 different words for love, they go off on these, well, it's this kind of love or that kind of love or the other kind of love. And I say, no, stop it. Because that's not what it's about. I don't care if it's a relationship I have with my wife. My goal should be that I would see her become more like Christ than I'm loving her. Otherwise, I become a clanging cymbal and a noisy, what did it say, a noisy grass? Sounding brass or a clanging cymbal, which in the King James it calls it a gong. You ever heard of gong? Knock all the wax out of your ears. You won't have to worry about cleaning your ears for about a month. Because love is really that important. That's why Jesus said that it's a commandment to love. What's the greatest commandment? Well, maybe to keep the Sabbath. No. Heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then to love your neighbor as yourself, Jesus said. Okay, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. I agree. And again, this speaks to me too. It does not seek its own, and it's not provoked. And it thinks no evil. What does yours say for thinks no evil, Dolly? The end of verse 5.
Is easily provoked, think of no evil.
Okay, okay. Does that mean we have to overlook sin? No. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it just as emphatically as I can, and I'm hoping next week, I'm not positive, but I'm hoping next week to go ahead and do one on what in fact is sin. It depends on if I have time to get it ready or not. It may be a couple weeks down the road yet. But boy, I'm telling you what, if all I do how can I put this? If all I do is just entice evil and think about evil things, what am I going to do? Jesus said, from within, out of the heart of man, man speaks. And it's rotten in there. And so we have to be crucified with Christ. Then we can do away with that aspect. So that means if you've been crucified with Christ, you don't sin anymore. Nope, I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all. If you do, then it's okay to sin. No, I didn't say that either. Because it's never okay to sin. What I'm saying is I'm not in bondage to sin anymore, though I can choose to do it. And if I choose to do it, that's what I'm doing, and I will provoke Jesus to provoke God to jealousy, because I'm fooling around with somebody as his bride. I'm fooling around with somebody that I'm not supposed to be fooling around with, and he has every right to be jealous. And then punishment happens, unless I get it taken care of, and I have to do that. So it's never okay. The next step of it, it does not rejoice in iniquity. It doesn't think sin is good. Have you ever been tempted with something and it seemed like a good thing? I know everybody who's ever sinned would have to say yes to that, because we wouldn't do it if it seemed like a bad thing. Well, I'm tempted to do this, but I know it's going to be the most horrible thing I could ever do. And we jump. No. It looks good for a moment. Okay? We don't rejoice in iniquity because we aren't pursuing wrong. We aren't thinking evil. People have said, well, that means that you aren't thinking evil of somebody. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that at all. That's not at all what it's talking about. It's talking about dwelling on the bad. And look at it in context. I can't love somebody and go live like they live. I can't use bad language in front of them and tell them that they're a sinner. I can't drink and get drunk, or sit there and party down with them and tell them they're a sinner. I can't smoke pot with them and tell them they're a sinner. I can't engage in homosexual activity and call them a sinner. I can't do anything that the world says is good and that they're living like right now and call it good and say that they need to come to Christ. All of this, well, I'm going to put it together in the end, all of it has to do with our testimony to others. And you know why? Because we're to love the way Christ loved us. I don't particularly love the way Christ loved us yet. Because there's some people that I struggle with loving, honestly. Terry, you've already expressed it. You do too. We're in the same boat. Does that make it any less legit that God tells us we're supposed to? I mean, it doesn't change anything because we struggle with something. So let's keep going with this. Does not rejoice in iniquity, but what does it do? It rejoices in the truth. It rejoices in the truth. So whatever is honest, whatever is just, whatever is fair, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good report, those kind of things. The truth of the matter. Philippians 4:8. That's the verse I was trying to quote, and I'll never get it right. I learned it and said it as a kid, and I got all the credit for it that I needed, and I'll never get it right again unless I read it. I promise you I'll never get them all right. Look it up, Philippians 4:8. That's what we're supposed to be dwelling on. That's what we need to be thinking. And we go out here into the world, and what do we do? What do we do? We aren't rejoicing in the truth. We're promoting a lie, basically. Happy with iniquity. You know how I know we're happy with it as a whole? I'm not saying you, and you and me. We're the ones that are not happy with it. I'm saying as a whole, the church has got this problem. We don't do anything about the sin that's out there. Because in order to love, apparently we've got to be a bunch of pushover weenies that can't get anything done. And that's not at all the way it should be. If I love them, I will go out of my way to any extent. I went by a house of a friend of mine one time. It was up in Rochester, Washington. And I looked up. It was late fall. They had a fire going in their fireplace. Well, they also had a fire going in their ceiling. They were sitting inside watching TV on their couch. and I did something that isn't really a good thing to do. I smashed my way into their house and told them they needed to get out because their house was on fire. It was a trailer. They don't take long to burn. Why? Because I cared enough about them to go to any length to get them to where they were in safety. I'm only using myself as an example of that because I think it fits here. We see these people that are lost and dying around us, and we do nothing. Or here's the other aspect of it: go in and sit down and watch TV with them while the house burns down around all of us.
I don't think so.
How much more legitimate is that into the cause of what we need to be doing? It's not. It's getting a little hot. You got anything to drink? That's not how it works. If we care or love people the way we're supposed to love people, we're jumping in and we're getting the job done. Now, there are people, Terry, that are hard to do that with.
Yes.
I admit that. But let me propose this, and this is something that speaks to me just as much. Those people that were pounding those spikes through Jesus' hands, Jesus loved. And he was dying for them. The people who had beaten him to a pulp and made this ex-carpenter where he couldn't even carry a couple of boards up a hill, and he loved them. But you know what else happened? The one who put him on the cross because of sin, he loved you, and he loved me. We put him there because of our sin. You think that was easy for him to love us? As God, because God is love, yes. As man, because of what he had to go through for our sin, I wonder. I wonder. Then he says this: greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friend.
That one verse says that he endured the cross for the joy that was set before him.
Yeah.
He endured the cross.
It wasn't easy. It was pitifully hard. It does not rejoice in iniquity, but it rejoices in the truth. Now we're into the positive side for a second. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. So I say, well, he ain't going to come to Christ anyway. No, not with that attitude he isn't. If God's laying it on my heart to talk to somebody about Jesus, and I say, well, he ain't going to come to Christ anyway, he's going to think I'm an idiot, and he's just going to ignore me, and he'll hate me, or he'll do this mean to me, or that mean to me, and this will go on, that'll go on, blah, 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 blah. We can come up with 1,000 different excuses. When we have that idea, he ain't coming to Christ because of us. And what have we done? We've jumped right into the full-fledged sin that God is trying to keep us from right here. And that's a lack of love for those for whom he died. As of last week, who did he die for? Everyone. And so if he died for the whole world, and everybody that would ever walk on the face of this earth, if he died for those people because of love, and I say I love Christ, I love the way Christ loved me, but I don't love everybody enough to have a heart for everybody to come to Christ. I'm sorry, but it's a lie. It's a lie. We can't live like they do. We can't rejoice in the evil. We can't look up to the evil. We have to engage. There's the word. I was going to say embrace, and I knew that wasn't it. Engage the evil and stand against it. Will they like us for it? You bet they will. I'll guarantee you they will. But it doesn't change what God said to do. Nothing will change what God said to do. Okay. Love never fails. There's a pretty powerful sentence right there. Love never fails. Why? If I'm loving the way Christ loved, it's not about me, and there's nothing to fail. There's nothing to fail. It's when I'm loving my way, and it's all about me, then, and I don't get what I'm supposed to get. I don't love. I can quit loving. Let's take a vehicle, for example. You buy a brand new Chevy pickup or a GMC and you just love this pickup, and then 5 years down the road it starts to have some pretty major problems, and what happens? You don't love it anymore. Now you're looking for something else. Okay? Why? That's normal. But here's the thing, is that love? No. We need to stop referring to that as love. Love says, okay, so it's got some problems. I'm going to do everything I can to fix it and make that thing back into tip-top shape. And when we go out into the lost world and they look at us and we say, well, I love you, but then you just treat them like dirt. Or you do what they do. You say the words they say. You consume what they consume. You agree with sin. You do all these things. They look at it and they go, why would I want to have anything to do with a hypocrite? And they're right. They're 100% right. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they'll fail. Where there are tongues, they'll cease. Where there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. So eventually, we'll know what love really, really is. And we'll do it right. When will that be? When he comes back. When he comes back for his bride, we'll see that real relationship. So until then, we just don't worry about it, right? We just let it go. I'm doing the best I can. I've got to understand I'm human. No. Because he said be perfect and be holy. Oh, come on, God, really? Are you sure you're not just raising the bar a little bit to keep us on track and give us something to shoot for? No. He said, do it. You can excuse away be perfect, but I don't know how you could excuse away be holy. That'd be a little harder to do in my book. And he said to do it. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, and I understood as a child, and I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. Contextually, this is not talking about gender and age. That's not it at all. What it's talking about is this. I start out as a Christian and I don't have everything down. But as I age as a Christian, I begin to not do some of the things and more of the things. And I put away the childish. I step away from the stupid. I can remember my cousin Carol one time. She was born about the time I graduated from high school, so she was considerably younger than myself. And I was over at their house one day, and she came back crying and carrying on, and my cousin and I had been out working on one of our vehicles, and I don't remember which one, and it was a major problem that we were having with the vehicle, and we were fighting our way through it. Well, here come Carol. She was crying and carrying on. Well, what's wrong, Carol? Well, some guys were walking down the trail I made. I thought, what a lightweight little problem to have it devastate your life like that. And here we sit. Here we sit. Now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I am known. Now abide these three things: faith, hope, and love. These three, but the greatest is love. Why? Because love is what all of Christianity is about. Not lust, not what can I get from it, not what's in it for me, but love. Unadulterated, pure, God-given love. That's what it's about. Terry, I got your back on it. I understand there are people that are not easy to love. But it doesn't change what God said. Let's commit to loving the way He said to love. The world's view of love is what? Gimme, gimme, what can I get? Lust. God's view is, how can I help you have a better relationship with the Father? And that's love. It's not about me at all. Should it cost me my life? So be it. You got to hear this. You know, that kind of thing. That's love. That is real love. Some of you are doing it. Some of you are living it. And I admire that, hugely. Some of you are struggling with it. And I respect that hugely. Some of you are just starting out. And in that, I understand. I really do. But let's learn to love the way the Bible says to love. And go out into this lost world, and though they hurt us, though they cause us trouble, though they lie about us and cheat and steal, and though they take what's ours and doesn't belong to them, whatever the case might be, somebody hurts us, so what? Love them anyhow. Because it's not about what we get, it's about what God gets. Let's close with prayer. Lord, thank you for your undying love that brought you to this sinful earth to die just so that we could live. What a wonderful thing to have happen. Lord, I pray as we go out into this lost world that you would help us in that we would love the way you love, that we would see people the way you see people, that we would view sin the way you view sin, and then live accordingly. Help us to do your bidding, your will, forever. Thank you for what you're going to do. In your name, amen.